Is drinking while pregnant contributing to the delinquency of minors? I posted a form of this question on one of my social media portals and was pleased at the responses saying that drinking while pregnant should be discouraged and avoided. The developing child is, after all, sharing the internal systems of the female carrying them. I'm saying female carrying them here instead of mother or something like that because it could be surrogate mother. It could be different situations. I think mother goes more into the description of what somebody does. If somebody adopts this child, it'll still be the mother. So yeah, anyway, back to the actual point. So children are not just born with a biological parent's genes, they can take on addictions and other supplemental and detrimental additives that the one gestating them is ingesting. I don't know how accessible alcohol has been in the past, but kudos to general media for showing women deciding to stop drinking after finding out they're pregnant. This is a common trope you see in films and things like that, like someone will be, oh, they'll find out they're pregnant, or someone will ask them, are you pregnant? And they'll be holding a glass of wine or something, and then they'll put it down and stop drinking. I think that's something that I have noticed in different forms of media, be it movies, TV shows, and things like that. I don't know how long that's been done, but I think once that knowledge was starting to get out there, the media and entertainment media has followed suit. There are no federal laws in the United States of America that restrict drinking during pregnancy, and I haven't heard of any specific laws about it anywhere else in the world outside of the ones in cultures that have general restrictions about anyone drinking. I'm talking things like the Muslim cultures that just say drinking isn't allowed for pretty much everyone. So, men, women, children, whatever, pregnant or not, you're not drinking. So, once the child is born, though, it would be contributing to the delinquency of minors to give them alcohol in most civilized nations. But this is something that I think is more recent because the relationship with this has changed. As an example, putting a bit of alcohol on a teething child's gums is still an ill advised but still sometimes shared folk practice. Now, cultures and parents will have different approaches to alcohol, different relationships to it. And some, I'm recalling, allowed my then early age teenage friends to have some wine with dinner depending on the occasion. This could be when they had guests or something like that. A specific friend of mine told me that, and he was a first generation European, and from what I know, he never actually got into the sort of binge drinking that I'd seen in certain Americans. Now, again, this is not that every single American I knew who didn't have their parents allow them to drink when they were kids end up drinking in university. Most people just drink. When they do drink, they don't binge. Anyway, I vaguely recall them explaining that their folks must have thought that, hey, my kid is going to drink anyway. Chances are they're going to drink. So they may as well start doing it in a controlled manner and have them get used to it under their supervision. They'll be able to say, okay, this is how my kid looks and behaves when he's on alcohol, and he's not just going to go at the first time and just drink a whole bottle of vodka because he's never actually drank it before. He knows the effect. So that was the kind of thing I think the thought process that the parents had. And there are also parents on the other side of the spectrum, not the other side of the spectrum where never drink or I'm kicking you out of the house, but the other side of the spectrum that flaunted the laws and bought alcohol and cigarettes and things like that for their children and friends. I heard some rumors that some parents did not just have no objection to it, no objection to that whole kids throwing parties. There was this kind of trope that actually did happen. A couple of popular films have been done of it where the parents go on some business trip or some vacation, the kid stays home and throws parties. That is a regular thing. Project X, I think, is one of them, but that was a regular thing that happened in high school. Semi regular, at least a few times a year, somebody's parents would do that. But I heard there were situations where the parents were actually partying with the kids. They were actually participatory in them. They were present. They were actually in there drinking and smoking with other kids in the house. And that's another extreme in that situation. So folks have diverse takes on alcohol and children and parenting and intoxication and what it's good for. And they can be parts of parenting that also predisposes certain kids to the use of certain drugs because it's different approaches with different people. So as for the legalities, laws against secondhand smoke exist in many developed countries. These have come to be accepted as knowledge of cigarettes has changed. What sort of drugs do you think should be avoided when pregnant or when a parent? And should one not go on certain diets? What other things should kind of be regulated if you think it's the government's place, it's the state's place to set these laws? Now, if you take away the whole setting of the laws by the government, what would you advise your wife, what would you advise a potential mother to take or not to take during that time? And how much do actual fluctuations in hormones, enzymes, and other body chemistry from one's day to day life have an effect on the pregnancy? Those are things that are being studied, and I think there's a lot of effects there. So, what about prescribed drugs for any psychological and medical issues that you're going? There already are certain warnings. Oh, you should maybe not take this drug if you are pregnant or trying to get pregnant, etc., etc. And what if alcohol itself is a coping mechanism for you? Should you drink to balance out your body's hormone levels in that sense, or would that imbalance take you off? But then again, if you have issues with drinking where you're using it as that kind of crutch, then couldn't the actual drinking be part of the reason that you're pregnant to begin with? Maybe you got drunk and you're out and you're with somebody who you're drinking to be with that person. So there's just things around the alcohol that is very questionable. And part of this was I had posted that one question that I was going to use in part of my series where I just do the little shorts, but it expanded with this other article that I found. And this article I found was called "Binge Drinking Has Doubled Among American Women Without Children in Just 12 Years," a study revealed. This is from the Daily Mail. There's going to be a link below to the blog post where I have this link for this. And with some of these things, especially things like the Daily Mail's articles, I've talked about how certain publications will just repeat and reword the main thing about 5 or 6 times, and then they'll have maybe something different in the middle, 2 or 3 paragraphs in the middle, and then go to a conclusion where they kind of rephrase the initial thing about 3 times and end. So some of these situations I skim a bit and I just go to the comment section to kind of test the water and see. And the comments were a mixed bag. So interesting how dismissive some folk were about having kids. They said, "Who'd want kids in this day and age?" And I say, okay, well, person commenting on this, chances are your grandparents were living in a post-World War II world and still had kids who were your parents, and then they end up having your parents, like Vietnam time. Times weren't that good. Almost anyone who honestly speaks of the good old days with a longing does not understand history. Or they do and may like some specific part of it, ignoring all the other horrific things that went along with that specific part that they think is actually really good. Or they actually like the horror. Or they actually like those negative situations and think they would have benefited more by being in control or somehow on top of these negative situations. Because, anyway, just come off of it. The good old days are not the good old days. This is the best time we've known to be alive. So, you personally may have a frustrating and disappointing life. This is not true for everyone. Some folk, and I'd venture to say even most, have made life choices and certain luck and circumstances to be in a very healthy and encouraging environment to nurture kids, especially in this time when we have so much knowledge and awareness of things like peaceful parenting and the ability to have that. There's just the best time actually to be alive as a child. You just look at the lives of children in general in the past, and this is the best time to be alive. But then you also do have the other people who are just like, well, like keep a naked baby, with the whole like that's some slang thing for some people who don't know about it, where it's they talk about in the hood, you're with a guy, some hood rat is with a guy, some low quality female says, and she's thinking this guy's going to leave me because he's also a low quality guy, and they're not actually engaged in a strong kind of relationship. And to get that guy to stay, he thinks he's going to go away, he's straying away, he might be dating some other people, has the kid, and then that's the whole keep a nigga baby. That's a thing. It's in Urban Dictionary. Check it out. Some older slang. Kind of aging myself for that. Now, with this estimation, which I think is rather accurate, this is the best time to be alive, there are many folk out there that I'd say may not have been making a net positive for humanity decision by choosing to have a child. Although even that child, that child may end up being the child that has a child who does something good. But in general, there's some people who are in some situations where they may be bringing a child in a less than optimal, even for their own ability, life. And I think it's a healthy and appropriate thing to ask why anyone should have kids. You should ask yourself that because, as I've mentioned before, just being able to do something shouldn't be your main reason of doing it. Because technically, once you are of age, of reproductive age, you can have kids. But in general, most people understand, yes, we shouldn't just be encouraging 14-year-olds to be going out and having kids just because they can. So we should also apply that to go older and say, okay, we shouldn't just expect to have kids. So when you have certain articles like this, anyway, why should anyone have the expectation that money should be extorted from certain people to pay to indoctrinate the children of other people that are in that general area that just decided to have kids? I don't think anyone should force anyone to become pregnant, nor should we directly prevent folk that want to. If they choose to, they should be able to work with the consequences and not demand others provide any aid they may require to terminate or maintain the results of that decision to have intercourse and get pregnant, which is 95, I would even want to venture to say 97% of the time. It's two people who knew if we have intercourse, there is a chance of being pregnant, even if you have taken all kinds of prophylactics. Most of the people doing it are not under the whole idea that babies are brought by storks. They understand that is a baby making process. Okay, so if they decide to not have kids or have kids and parent them in a way where those kids don't really care about them too much in these violent kind of parenting situations, then they should plan for the future and not expect general society to provide any financial, social, and other support in their older and less relatively capable years. I think this should just be a thing that people understand. Don't expect people to support things that happen from your decisions, whether it's supporting you to have the kids or whether it's supporting you in a life that doesn't have kids, that doesn't have that kind of situation. Now, this doesn't mean there aren't going to be other concerned people in society that may want to support people who need help in these situations. I'm not saying that should be precluded, but it should be a thing where it's voluntary. So, yeah, some want to have kids. And then there are also these sort of comments. As a mother of two sons, I feel it should be us who are drinking. Okay, so I get these kind of things are a joke, and okay, I think it's probably a joke. I think this person was joking, and but some folks, some people out there actually do think this way, and these people. I mean, what do you say about these people? Maybe their parents drank around them when they were kids and had certain issues that they might not have actually faced up to right now. Or maybe it's just for the laws. I don't know. But in general, I don't think it's a good statement. And from my experience, my research looking into it, drinking to celebrate is a one thing that people do. But in general, it is mostly an escape. Most drug use is an attempt to compensate for some difficulty somebody has with dealing with the actual reality, with their day to day. Some people say it gives you highs, gives you lows, but in many cases, you'll find it's evening people out. Something has happened in someone's life to get their hormones or enzymes or dopamine levels to a lower than your baseline. And when you take those drugs, it either cancels out the memories or experiences that are lowering it up, or it pumps more enzymes, dopamine into your system to level you back up to 100. And it's not taking you to 110, it's not taking you to 150. And then you have some people who, if you are just on the baseline and you're just using it basically just recreationally in that sense, sometimes it will give you that uptick, but then when you come back to 100, it's still good enough to just deal with life, so you're not really going to get addicted to that behavior that much. That's just a general, you can look into these actual studies to see about who does that and who experiences things in different ways. But we understand this because people take actual medication when they're actually found to have certain deficiencies in certain things to get them back up to level, get them back up to normal. So I think this is an understood thing. That's part of why this is called self-medicating. So it's kind of unfortunate to hear that there are some people out there who actually do think of children in this way and do think of children in that way where they say, this is something I can't cope with and I need to drink to get away from it. Not necessarily to celebrate, oh, I just put my kid through, my kid just had their first sports game and I trained them and they tried kicking this shot in this certain way. Kicking this shot in a certain way, is that the right is that the right sports ball term? I actually have played many versions of sports ball. Yeah, you can kick a shot in the right way, in the right goalposts, things like that. So in that kind of situation, you have parents who actually do look at kids as a burden in that sense, and that is horrible. As I mentioned before, that whole keep a nigga baby. Some of those people will look at that kid as an accessory, as an extra thing that's a burden, that's not really something where they feel like this is a joy to be around. I want to remember all these times. Because if you think about being intoxicated, it's actually going to lessen your memories of those interactions. I think you'd want to be sober and present for this as much as possible. But anyway, that's it for this post, for this video, for this whatever this is, for this listening, for this speaking, for this reading. So there's going to be links below. There's been merchandise on the screen if you want to help me out. I also have a Patreon and a PayPal. I'm going to look into other ways for you guys to donate if you like the content that I'm making. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think it should be considered some kind of delinquency, contributing to the delinquency of minors. Now, this also goes into how much do you think the actual being gestating is alive, is an individual in and of itself? Because I know the second the kid is born, in most cases, if the woman was just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to pour a shot down the kid's throat when the kid is like given to her, the doctor comes over and gives the kid over and says, I'm going to give him a shot. They're like, no, that's not cool. But what if that mother was just still had the kid in here and then was like, okay, I'm not putting a shot in that kid. I'm not putting a shot in the baby formula. But right before I'm 51 weeks pregnant, I'm going to go out and just pound a bottle of vodka. Should that just be like, yeah, that's okay? I mean, what's stopping her? It's her body. It's her body, her sauce, right? Is that what we're looking at? Okay, that's it. Like, share, and subscribe. Goodbye.